When God is all you have, the season that breaks you, just to build you stronger. There comes a moment in every man's life when God brings him to a place he never expected. A place where everything familiar disappears. A place where the noise quiets, the people fade, and the support you once depended on suddenly collapses. Not because God is cruel, not because he is punishing you, but because he is preparing you for a version of yourself you cannot become while you are surrounded by distractions. God doesn't strip you to hurt you. He strips you to reveal you. Because as long as you can lean on people, you will never learn how to lean on him. As long as you can run to comfort, you will never discover the strength that is born in discomfort. And as long as you have a backup plan, you will never know the power of depending on God alone. There's a moment when a man looks around and realizes that every door has closed, every trusted hand has let go, every plan has failed, and everything he thought he needed is gone. It's in that moment, when you have no one but God, that you finally see who he really is. Many talk about faith. Few are forced to live it. Because faith is not proven in blessings. Faith is proven in emptiness. When the friends who once promised loyalty go silent. When the people you carried can no longer be found. When the money dries up. When the home you built feels unfamiliar. When you wake up and realize the life you imagined is not the life you're living. That is when God steps in, not with comfort first, but with clarity. He lets the noise die, so his voice can be heard. He removes the wrong people so the right ones can come. He closes destructive paths so you can finally walk the one he designed for you. This is the season few talk about. The season where God breaks you off from everyone so he can break you open for himself. Because isolation is not God's rejection. Isolation is God's invitation. He is not pulling you away from the world. He is pulling the world away from you. He is not punishing you with loneliness. He is positioning you for purpose. The man God chooses, he first isolates. The man God uses, he first empties. Look at Scripture. Job lost everything in a span of moments. Wealth, children, health, respect. The man everyone admired became the man everyone avoided. Yet in the ashes of his pain, Job discovered a God he never would have known in his comfort. His loss became the doorway to a deeper revelation. David wasn't shaped on a throne. He was shaped in caves, running for his life, surrounded by shadows instead of soldiers. But it was in those caves that he learned the heart of God, the voice of God, the character of God. Before God trusted him with a kingdom, he trusted him with loneliness. Moses wasn't transformed in a palace. He was transformed in the wilderness, with no map, no help, no plan. That's where he learned that God provides bread from heaven and water from places where water shouldn't exist. Joseph wasn't lifted in the presence of crowds. He was lifted in the silence of a prison, forgotten by men but remembered by God. Every man who walked with God deeply walked alone first, because isolation is God's classroom, and pain is his instrument, and silence is his training ground. This is the part people don't want. God will let everything fall apart so you finally stop depending on everything that cannot hold you. Friends are not your foundation. Money is not your foundation. Family is not your foundation. Your own strength is not your foundation. God alone is. And sometimes the only way for you to see that truth is for him to remove every false support holding you up. When God is all you have left, something supernatural happens. Your prayers stop being pretty. Your worship stops being rehearsed. Your heart stops pretending. Your faith stops being theory. This is where real transformation begins. When you cry, not because you're weak, but because you're finally honest. When you pray, not to impress God, but because you need him to breathe. When you sit alone and realize that everyone can leave, but he never will. In those moments, loneliness becomes intimacy. The void becomes the meeting place, and the silence becomes the space where God speaks the loudest. This is where strength is forged, not the strength the world praises. The quiet, unshakable strength that only comes from walking with God through fire and coming out unburned. Trials don't break a man of God. They build him, they refine him, they shape him into someone the enemy can't intimidate and circumstances can't control. Because once a man has walked with God alone, no crowd can move him. Once a man has survived with nothing, abundance can't deceive him. Once a man has learned to hear God in silence, noise can't distract him. When you've walked with God as your only source, you stop chasing people as your security. When you've seen God provide in impossible places, you stop anxiety from ruling your life. When you've tasted God's comfort in pain, you stop being afraid of loss. Because you realize something deeper. If God is with you, you lack nothing. If God is for you, you fear nothing. If God lives in you, you lose nothing. Everything and everyone can leave, but God remains. He is not the last option. He is the only foundation that never crumbles. So if you're in that season where God has stripped everything away, don't call it the end. Heaven calls it the beginning. You're not being buried. You're being planted. You're not losing your life. You're learning your purpose. You're not being abandoned. You're being rebuilt. The same God who visited Job in ashes, who restored David from caves, who brought Joseph from prison to palace, who strengthened Paul from a jail cell, that same God is shaping you right now. Your story is not collapsing, it is being constructed. Your faith is not dying, it is being purified. Your future is not gone, it is being prepared. So don't fear the isolation. Don't fear the silence. Don't fear the stripping. It is God removing what can't stay so He can make room for what must come. And when this season ends, you won't walk out the same. You'll walk out stronger, wiser, clearer, and anchored in a God who was enough all along. If you believe this, type in the comments, God is my strength. God is enough. And remember, the moment you have no one but God is the moment you discover you never needed anyone else more than Him. When God breaks a man to rebuild his destiny, there is a point in a man's journey with God where he begins to understand a truth most never grasp. God doesn't just rebuild your life, He rebuilds you. Because what good is a new life if the old you still lives inside it? That is why God allows seasons where everything feels stripped away, not to punish you, but to transform you into someone capable of carrying the destiny He designed. The breaking is not the end. The breaking is the blueprint. Every man God has ever used has walked through a valley that felt like destruction, but was actually construction. This is the stage where God does His deepest work. Not in crowds, not in comfort, but in isolation, silence, and surrender. You see, when God removes everything around you, that is when He starts reshaping everything within you. He breaks your pride. He breaks your self-dependence. He breaks your illusions of control. He breaks the version of you that lived by sight, so He can build the version that lives by faith. Because the future God has prepared requires a stronger version of you, and strength is never forged in ease. Look at Jacob. He spent his whole life running from responsibility, running from consequences, running from God. But one night, alone in the dark, God cornered him. No crowd watching, no family to protect, no distractions to hide behind, just Jacob and God. And in that lonely wrestling match, Jacob wasn't just fighting with God, he was fighting with himself. His old identity, his old habits, his old fears. And when God touched his hip, Jacob broke, literally. But that break gave birth to a blessing that changed nations. He went into the night as Jacob. He walked out as Israel. You don't get a new destiny until God breaks the old identity. That is what God does in seasons where you have no one but Him. He lets what once worked stop working. He lets what once made sense fall apart. He lets what once comforted you no longer satisfy you. Because He is not trying to take you backward. He is pushing you forward. But to move forward, something must break. Your dependence on people, your need for approval, your habit of controlling outcomes, your fear of being alone, your patterns of choosing what is familiar over what is faithful. So don't misunderstand the season where God pulls everything away. It is not the collapse of your life. It is the collapse of the version of you that cannot go where God is taking you. This is where God reveals the truth about your journey. You were never meant to be built by people. You were meant to be built by God. And God cannot build on a foundation full of cracks. So He breaks the old foundation to establish a new one. A foundation no storm can shake. A foundation no loss can break. A foundation no betrayal can weaken. A foundation anchored in Him alone. God removes your support system so He can become your system. God removes your comfort so He can become your comfort. God removes your plans so He can reveal His plan that will not fail. Because when God rebuilds a man, He doesn't just restore what was lost. He multiplies what is possible. Look at Elijah, a prophet with power, strength, courage. Yet one moment of fear drove him into the wilderness, desperate and alone. And what did God do? He didn't shame him. He didn't replace him. He rebuilt him. God fed him, strengthened him, gave him rest, and whispered direction into his spirit. But that restoration only happened because Elijah was isolated. The mountain was empty. The crowd was gone. The noise was silent. God whispers only when the world goes quiet. Some of the most powerful things God will ever say to you will be spoken when you have no one left to listen to but Him. Part 2 of your journey with God is not where He replaces what you lost. It is where He replaces who you used to be. God is not just giving you a new life. He is giving you a new identity, a new mindset, a new heart, a new strength. This is why the breaking feels harsh. Because He is not adjusting your old self. He is transforming you into a man who can survive storms you once would have drowned in. A man who can stand alone without collapsing. A man who can walk in calling without chasing applause. A man who can depend on God even when nothing makes sense. A man who becomes unshakable because he has learned the secret. If God is with me, I cannot be destroyed. When God breaks a man, He breaks him in such a way that rebuilding becomes unavoidable. Not optional, not accidental, but guaranteed. And the man God rebuilds becomes dangerous, not to people, but to darkness, because he becomes a man who does not break easily, a man who prays differently, a man who believes differently, a man who walks differently. A man shaped by God is a man the enemy fears. The rise of a man God has refined. There comes a moment in every God-shaped life when the storm that once crushed you becomes the wind that carries you. When the same silence that once terrified you becomes the space where you hear God the clearest. When the emptiness that once felt like death becomes the ground where new life finally takes root. This is the moment of rising. Not the rising that comes from effort or ambition. Not the rising built on applause or human strength. But the rising that comes only after God has broken, emptied, and rebuilt you from the inside out. Most people want the rise without the breaking, the crown without the caves, the blessing without the burden, the promotion without the pruning. But the rise of God always follows the refinement of God. This is why a man who has walked through divine breaking carries a different presence, a quiet authority, a deeper peace, a sharpened wisdom, a strength that doesn't need to shout. Because the man that walks out of God's wilderness does not walk out the same man who walked in. He walks out purified. He walks out focused. He walks out anchored. He walks out ready. Ready not for comfort, but for calling. Look at Joseph. He didn't step into the palace because people helped him. He stepped in because he survived the pit, the betrayal, the slavery and the prison without letting bitterness destroy him. God shaped him privately so He could raise him publicly. The same brothers who mocked him bowed before him. The same world that forgot him needed him. The same pain that broke him prepared him. A man God refines becomes a man no darkness can stop. And look at David. Years of caves didn't delay his calling. They developed it. When he finally rose to the throne, he didn't rise as a naive shepherd boy. He rose as a warrior forged by lions, giants, betrayal, and fear. Caves built what crowns could not. This is how God works. Before God elevates a man, He empties him. Before God trusts a man, He tests him. Before God uses a man publicly, He refines him privately. Because what is built quickly breaks quickly. But what God builds in darkness stands in daylight. This is where you are now, the rising stage. You've survived the stripping, you've endured the silence, you've wrestled with the breaking, and now God begins to reveal why. The season where you had no one but God taught you dependence. The season where God broke you taught you humility. The season where God rebuilt you taught you identity. And now, the season where God raises you will teach you purpose. This rising doesn't look like revenge. It looks like wisdom. It looks like clarity. It looks like peace that doesn't make sense. It looks like a man who no longer needs validation to walk in obedience. God begins opening doors you didn't knock on. He brings people you didn't chase. He makes opportunities that cannot be explained by talent or effort. Because this isn't your rise. This is God's rise through you. The man you've become is ready to carry blessings without forgetting the blesser, ready to lead without losing compassion, ready to love without fear, ready to stand without wavering, ready to walk into calling without needing approval. This is the moment where everything God taught you in the dark becomes useful in the light. Everything you lost makes sense. Every betrayal becomes fuel. Every tear becomes oil. Every delay becomes direction. Every silence becomes revelation. When God raises a man, he raises him beyond the reach of what once destroyed him. The depression that once crushed you can no longer touch you. The fear that once controlled you no longer owns you. The insecurity that once paralyzed you no longer speaks for you. The people who once wounded you no longer define you. Because when God becomes your foundation, nothing else gets to break you. This rise is not loud, it is steady. Not rushed, it is divine. Not temporary, it is eternal. You do not rise because you are strong. You rise because God is faithful. And now the world will see the man God shaped in silence. The strength God forged in sorrow. The wisdom God planted in tears. The faith God built in isolation. You are not rising back to who you were. You are rising into who you were always meant to be. This is the rise that hell cannot stop. This is the rise that pain cannot steal. This is the rise that destiny demands. And as you step into this season, God whispers, "Now you understand. Now you are ready. Now walk." If you believe this is your season of rising, type in the comments, "I am ready for what God has prepared."